The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets of New Busan as Administrator Kim Dae-ho stepped out of his office. He looked up at the pale orange sky and felt the familiar weight of worry in his chest. 18 months. That was how long they had been cut off from Earth. The supply ships should have arrived 3 months ago. Kim Dae-ho walked slowly through the settlement. The buildings were simple metal structures with solar panels on their roofs. Gardens stretched between the homes where colonists grew vegetables and grain. Everything looked normal, but he knew better. Behind the calm surface, people were scared. The colony had 847 people. They had come here 5 years ago to build a new life on Kepler 442b. The planet was good for farming. The air was breathable. The gravity was close to Earth normal. It should have been perfect, but being perfect meant nothing when the supply ship stopped coming. In the medical center, Dr. Yu Hye-jin was counting medicine bottles again. She did this every morning now. Each count showed the same terrible truth. They had maybe 2 weeks of antibiotics left. The insulin for diabetic colonists would last another month if they were careful. Still the same numbers, she said to her assistant. Nurse Bae Min-jung. Maybe the next ship will come today, Min-jung said, but her voice held no hope. Dr. Yu had stopped believing in maybe 3 weeks ago. Across the settlement, Communications Officer Park Soo-jin sat in front of her radio equipment. The screen showed empty space in all directions. She sent the daily message toward Earth, knowing it would take 4 years to reach home. Even if Earth sent a reply today, she would be an old woman before it arrived. The radio crackled with static. Park Soo-jin adjusted the controls but heard only the background noise of space. No ships, no signals, nothing. In the farming sector, Choi Yoon-seo was checking the irrigation systems. She had been a teacher on Earth, but here everyone had to learn new jobs. The automated systems were breaking down one by one. Without replacement parts, they would soon be farming by hand like people did centuries ago. Her husband, Hong Sung-min, was in the next field over. He waved at her and smiled, but she could see the worry lines around his eyes. Their daughter Choi A-ra was only 8 years old. What kind of future waited for her on this isolated world? The settlement had been carefully planned. The residential areas formed a circle around the central buildings. The medical center, administration office, and communication hub were in the middle. The farming areas and industrial sectors spread out beyond the homes. Everything was connected by good roads and underground tunnels for bad weather. Security Chief Lee Min-ho walked his daily patrol route. He had 12 guards under his command. All of them were colonists who had been given basic training. None of them were real soldiers. Lee Min-ho himself had been a police officer on Earth, but space colonies needed different skills. He stopped at the perimeter fence and looked out at the alien landscape. Strange purple plants grew in the distance. 2 small moons hung in the daytime sky. Sometimes he wondered if they would ever see Earth again. The communication center suddenly came alive with sound. Park Soo-jin sat up straight as her instruments detected something approaching the system. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to get a clear reading. "This is New Busan Control to approaching vessel," she said into her microphone. "Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Only static answered her. The detection signals grew stronger. Something big was coming toward their planet. Park Soo-jin checked her instruments again. The ship was too far away to see clearly, but the energy readings were massive, much larger than any supply ship Earth had ever sent. She reached for the emergency communication button. Within minutes, her message was being broadcast throughout the settlement. All residents report to emergency stations. Unknown vessel approaching. This is not a drill. Kim Dae-ho ran toward the communication center as people poured out of their homes. The emergency plan was simple. All non-essential personnel would gather in the central buildings. Anyone with military or security training would take defensive positions around the perimeter. The problem was that almost nobody had real military training. Lee Min-ho was already organizing his security team when Kim Dae-ho reached the command post. The screen showed a ship unlike anything in their databases. It was sleek and curved, more like a living creature than a machine. The metal seemed to flow like water, and strange lights pulsed along its surface. "Have you made contact?" Kim Dae-ho asked. "No response to any of our signals," Park Soo-jin replied. "The ship is not transmitting identification codes. I cannot tell if it is human or alien." The word alien hung in the air like a physical thing. They had all known this day might come. Earth had found signs of intelligent life in other star systems, but no contact had ever been made. New Busan was far from Earth, far from help. If aliens wanted to make first contact, this isolated colony would be an easy target. Dr. Yu Hye-jin arrived at the command center carrying her emergency medical kit. "How long until the ship arrives?" she asked. "Approximately 4 hours," Park Soo-jin answered. 4 hours to prepare for the unknown. Lee Min-ho sent his security teams to their positions around the settlement. The perimeter had defensive walls, but they were designed to keep out local wildlife, not hostile aliens. The colonists had some weapons: plasma rifles for hunting, industrial tools that could be used as weapons. It would have to be enough. Farmer Lim Kyung-suk arrived at the armory carrying her hunting rifle. She had never shot at anything more dangerous than the local deer-like animals, but she was not going to hide while others defended her home. "Where do you want me?" she asked Lee Min-ho. "Section 4, near the main gate," he replied. "Take 3 other civilians with you." All around the settlement, similar scenes played out. Engineer Nam Ji-woo powered up the industrial mechs used for construction. Teenager Oh Tae-young helped distribute ammunition. Even elderly residents like retired teacher Kim Hae-sun insisted on assignments. The unknown ship continued its approach. Park Soo-jin kept trying to make contact, but the vessel remained silent. Its strange design became clearer as it got closer. The hull seemed to shift and change shape as if it were alive. No human technology looked anything like it. Kim Dae-ho stood on the command center roof and watched the sky through binoculars. The ship was visible now as a bright dot against the orange sky. In a few hours they would know if it carried friends or enemies. The colonists of New Busan had come to this world seeking peace and a better life. Now they stood ready with whatever weapons they could find, prepared to defend everything they had built. The relief ship was coming, but nobody knew what kind of relief it would bring. The alien ship touched down on the main landing pad with barely a whisper of sound. Administrator Kim Dae-ho watched from behind a concrete barrier as the strange vessel settled onto the metal platform. Up close, the ship looked even more disturbing. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, and soft blue lights pulsed beneath the hull like a heartbeat. Security Chief Lee Min-ho crouched beside him, rifle ready. "Still no response to our communications," he said quietly. Around the landing pad, 43 colonists waited in defensive positions. Farmer Choi Yoon-seo gripped her plasma rifle behind a storage container. Engineer Nam Ji-woo had positioned one of his construction mechs where it could cover the ship. Everyone was scared, but nobody ran. For 10 long minutes, nothing happened. The ship sat silent on the pad while the colonists waited. Dr. Yu Hye-jin checked her medical scanner and frowned. "I'm detecting life signs inside the vessel, but the readings are strange. The biological patterns do not match anything in our databases." Kim Dae-ho made a decision. Someone had to make the first move, and he was the colony administrator. That meant the responsibility was his. He stood up slowly, keeping his rifle lowered but ready. "I'm going to approach the ship," he announced over the radio. "Sir, that might not be wise," Lee Min-ho replied. "Maybe not, but we cannot stay here forever. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done it from orbit." Kim Dae-ho walked slowly across the open space toward the alien vessel. Each step felt like it took forever. Behind him, he could hear the quiet sounds of his people adjusting their weapons and taking better aim. When he was 20 meters from the ship, something incredible happened. The solid metal hull began to flow like thick liquid. An opening appeared where none had existed before. Kim Dae-ho stopped walking and raised his rifle slightly. A figure emerged from the ship. The alien was tall, maybe 2.5 meters in height. Its body was thin and graceful, covered in what looked like an environmental suit made of the same flowing metal as the ship. Through the transparent faceplate, Kim Dae-ho could see large dark eyes and pale skin that seemed to glow with its own light. The alien moved with fluid precision, each step perfectly balanced. It walked toward Kim Dae-ho without hesitation, showing no fear of the weapons pointed at it. When it was 5 meters away, the alien stopped. Then something impossible happened. Kim Dae-ho heard a voice inside his head speaking perfect Korean. "Greetings. I am caretaker Veltar of the Nurathi. We bring aid to your settlement." Kim Dae-ho stumbled backward, nearly dropping his rifle. The voice in his mind was gentle but alien, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Around the landing pad, other colonists were crying out in surprise as they heard the same mental communication. "How are you speaking in our minds?" Dr. Yu Hee-jin called out from her position. "It is our way," Veltar replied, the mental voice reaching everyone at once. "We mean no harm. Your people suffer from isolation and shortage of supplies. We have come to help." More aliens emerged from the ship. There were 8 of them in total, all tall and graceful like their leader. They moved in perfect coordination, carrying strange devices that hummed with unknown energy. Security Chief Lee Min-ho stepped forward, his rifle still ready. "How did you know we needed help? Who told you about our situation?" "We have watched many worlds. We observe species in distress. When we can help, we do." Veltar gestured toward the ship with one long arm. "We bring medical supplies, food synthesizers, and tools your people need." Kim Dae-ho felt confused and suspicious. These aliens seemed friendly, but their arrival was too convenient. How had they known exactly when to come? How did they know what the colony needed? "Why help us?" he asked. "What do you want in return?" Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When the mental voice came again, it carried a strange sadness. "We help because we understand suffering. Our own people have known loss. We ask nothing except that you accept our aid." The aliens began unloading equipment from their ship. Kim Dae-ho had never seen technology like it. Medical devices that looked like they were grown rather than built. Machines that seemed to anticipate what their operators wanted before being asked. Dr. Yu Hee-jin cautiously approached one of the Nurathi, who was setting up what looked like a medical scanner. "May I examine your equipment?" she asked. The alien nodded and stepped aside. Dr. Yu ran her own scanner over the device and gasped at the readings. "This machine can diagnose diseases I have never heard of. The technology is decades ahead of anything Earth has developed." Engineer Nam Ji-woo was studying a device that apparently could synthesize food from basic organic compounds. "How does this work?" he asked the nearest Nurathi. "Matter conversion at the molecular level," came the mental reply. "Your soil contains all necessary elements. This device rearranges them into nutritional compounds." The demonstration was impressive. The alien machine processed a handful of dirt and produced what looked like protein bars and vitamin tablets. Nam Ji-woo tested the food with his scanner and found it to be perfectly safe and nutritious. Communications Officer Park. Soo-jin was examining what appeared to be a communication device far more advanced than anything the colony possessed. "This could reach Earth," she said with excitement. "The signal strength is incredible." But former intelligence officer Bae Ji-hoon remained suspicious. He watched the aliens carefully and noticed things others missed. The Nurathi never removed their environmental suits completely. They avoided direct contact with humans. And most importantly, they kept scanning the horizon with their instruments as if looking for something. "Administrator Kim," Bae Ji-hoon said quietly over a private radio channel, "I think we should be careful. These aliens are helping us, yes, but they are also very nervous about something. Look at how they keep watching the sky." Kim Dae-ho observed the aliens more closely and realized Bae Ji-hoon was right. Despite their calm manner, the Nurathi seemed constantly alert. Veltar in particular kept looking upward as if expecting trouble from space. As the day progressed, the aliens continued setting up their equipment around the colony. The medical devices they provided could cure diseases the human doctors had never seen. Their agricultural tools could make barren soil fertile in hours. Their communication systems could reach across the galaxy. But with each gift came more questions. Why were the Nurathi so generous? What did they gain by helping isolated human colonies? And why did they seem so worried about something approaching from the stars? That evening, Kim Dae-ho met privately with Veltar near the landing pad. The alien stood motionless, its large eyes reflecting the light of the 2 moons. "Your help is generous beyond measure," Kim Dae-ho said. "But I must ask again, why are you really here?" Veltar was silent for a long time. When the mental voice finally came, it was filled with ancient sadness. "Because time is running short for your species, and for ours." 3 days after the Nurathi arrival, New Busan had transformed into something almost magical. Dr. Yu Hee-jin stood in the medical center, watching alien devices heal injuries and cure diseases she had struggled with for months. Old farmer Kim Hae-sun, who had been dying from a lung infection, was now breathing clearly for the first time in years. "The medical technology is incredible," she told Administrator Kim Dae-ho during their morning briefing. These machines can repair damaged organs at the cellular level. They have already saved 16 people who would have died without proper treatment. In the agricultural sectors, miracles were happening daily. Agricultural specialist Hong Sung-min watched in amazement as Nurathi soil regenerators turned dead earth into fertile farmland. Plants that had been struggling to grow were now thriving. The food synthesizers provided fresh protein and vitamins the colony had not seen in months. "We will have enough food to last years," Hong reported. "The yield from our crops has increased by 300%. Engineer Nam Ji-woo was equally impressed with the alien technology. The Nurathi had provided power cells that could run for decades without maintenance, construction tools that could reshape metal like clay, communication devices that made their old equipment look like Stone Age artifacts. But not everyone was celebrating. Former military intelligence officer Bae Ji-hoon spent his time observing the aliens rather than admiring their gifts. He noticed patterns that troubled him. The Nurathi worked efficiently but always seemed to be listening for something. They never relaxed. They never seemed to sleep. Most disturbing of all, they kept their ship ready for immediate departure. Administrator Kim, Bae Ji-hoon said during a private meeting, "I think we need to ask harder questions. These aliens are generous, but they are also prepared to leave at a moment's notice. Their equipment can be packed and moved quickly. They are not here to stay." Kim Dae-ho had been having similar thoughts. The Nurathi help was wonderful, but something felt wrong about the situation. Why would advanced aliens spend so much effort helping one small human colony? What did they really want? That afternoon, he requested another private meeting with caretaker Veltar. They met in the observation tower overlooking the settlement. The alien stood perfectly still, its dark eyes studying the horizon. "Your people have transformed our colony in just 3 days," Kim Dae-ho said. "Our sick are healed. Our crops are growing. Our children are no longer hungry. We are grateful beyond words." "We are pleased to help," Veltar replied through mental communication. "But I must know the truth. Why are you really here? What do you gain from helping us?" Veltar was quiet for a long time. Kim Dae-ho could feel sadness radiating from the alien's mind like heat from a fire. "Your species faces extinction," Veltar finally said. "Not from disease or starvation, but from something far worse. The Devourers are coming to this sector of the galaxy." "The Devourers," Kim Dae-ho repeated. "What are they?" "A force that consumes entire civilizations. They strip planets of all life, leaving nothing but dead worlds behind. They have already destroyed 17 star systems in nearby space." Kim Dae-ho felt ice form in his stomach. "How long do we have? Perhaps days. Perhaps weeks. Our long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace. Something vast approaches your system." Across the colony, Communications Officer Park Soo-jin was discovering the same terrible truth. The advanced Nurathi communication equipment was picking up signals her old systems had missed. Deep space was alive with movement. Ships the size of moons were traveling toward Kepler 442b. She ran to find Dr. Yoo Hee-jin, who was working in the medical center. "You need to see this," Park Soo-jin said, her voice shaking. "The alien communication array is detecting multiple large objects approaching our system." Dr. Yu followed her to the communication center and studied the readings. What she saw made her blood freeze. The energy signatures were enormous, bigger than anything human science had ever detected. "How many ships?" she asked. "At least 3. Possibly more?" "They are still too far away for detailed scans, but they are definitely heading toward us." Meanwhile, in the agricultural sector, Hong Sung-min was having his own disturbing conversation with one of the Nurathi technicians. The alien had been teaching him how to use the soil regenerators when Hong asked an innocent question. "How many worlds have you helped with this technology?" The Nurathi stopped, working, and looked at him with those large dark eyes. "Many worlds. Hundreds of civilizations over thousands of years." "That is wonderful. You must have saved countless lives." The alien's response chilled him. "We have saved those we could. But the worlds themselves, they are gone now." "All gone." Hong Sung-min felt his hope crumble. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Consumed by the Devourers. We arrive, we help, we save who we can. But we always arrive too late to save the world itself." That evening, Kim Dae-ho called an emergency meeting of the colony leadership. The main conference room was packed with department heads, security personnel, and senior colonists. Caretaker Veltar stood at the front of the room like a pale shadow. "Tell them what you told me," Kim Dae-ho said. Veltar's mental voice reached everyone in the room simultaneously. Your world is in the path of an ancient enemy. The Devourers have consumed civilizations for millions of years. They strip planets of all biological and mineral resources, leaving nothing but empty rock behind. Engineer Nam Ji-woo leaned forward. How do they do this? What kind of technology could destroy entire worlds? They do not use technology as you understand it. The Devourers are a biological force. Their ships are living creatures the size of cities. They land on worlds and consume everything organic. Then they process the minerals and move on to the next system. Security Chief Lee Min-ho asked the question everyone was thinking. How do we fight them? Veltar's sadness became overwhelming. You do not fight them. You evacuate. You save who you can and find a new world. It is the only way. Dr. Yoo Hee-jin stood up angrily. So you came here to tell us our home is doomed. You give us gifts and technology, then tell us we must abandon everything. We came to save your people. Our ships can carry your population to safety. We know of worlds where humans can survive. You can rebuild your civilization elsewhere. The room erupted in angry voices. Colonists shouted questions and protests. Some demanded to know why the Narathi had not warned Earth. Others wanted to know how long they had to prepare for evacuation. But Kim Dae-ho remained quiet, thinking. Finally, he stood and raised his hand for silence. How many civilizations have you saved this way? He asked Veltar. Hundreds. We are the last survivors of our own world. For 3,000 years, we have traveled between the stars, saving other species from our fate. And how many times have you successfully evacuated entire populations? Veltar hesitated before answering. We save those we can. Usually between 10 and 20% of a planet's population. The rest choose to stay with their homes rather than flee to unknown worlds. Kim Dae-ho nodded slowly. So you offer us the chance to abandon our colony, our farms, our homes. You want us to become refugees like you, wandering between the stars. It is the only way to survive. Kim Dae-ho looked around the room at his people. These were farmers, engineers, teachers, and families who had traveled across space to build something new. They had invested years of their lives in New Busan. This world was their home now. What if we chose to stay and fight? Veltar's mental voice became sharp with alarm. You cannot fight the Devourers. No species has ever succeeded. They are too powerful, too numerous. To stand against them is to choose death. Kim Dae-ho smiled grimly. Maybe, but it would be our choice to make. The colony meeting continued deep into the night. Caretaker Veltar stood motionless as the humans argued around the conference table. The alien had expected immediate agreement to evacuation. Instead, the colonists were debating something Veltar had never encountered before, the choice to fight an unwinnable battle. Let me understand this correctly, said Dr. Yoo Hee-jin. You have been running from these Devourers for 3,000 years. In all that time, no species has ever successfully defended their world. That is correct, Veltar replied through mental communication. And you believe the only option is evacuation. It is the only logical option. The Devourers cannot be defeated. They can only be avoided. Security Chief Lee Min-ho leaned back in his chair. You said you could evacuate maybe 20% of our population. What about the other 80%? They would choose to die with their world rather than live elsewhere. And you accept that as normal? Veltar's confusion was obvious, even through telepathic communication. It isn't regrettable but logical. Some always choose death over displacement. Engineer Nam Ji-woo shook his head. That is not logical at all. That is giving up. The concept seemed alien to Veltar. Giving up. We do not understand this phrase, Kim Dae-ho explained. It means to stop trying. To accept defeat without fighting. But fighting leads to death. Evacuation leads to survival. This is simple logic. Former intelligence officer Bae Ji-hoon had been quiet during most of the discussion. Now he spoke up. Caretaker Veltar, in 3,000 years of evacuating civilizations, have the Devourers grown stronger or weaker? They have grown stronger. Each consumed world provides them with more resources and biological material. So by running away, you have actually made them more powerful. Veltar was silent for a long moment. We have never considered this perspective. Communications Officer Park Soo-jin pulled up star charts on the main display. Show us the pattern of worlds the Devourers have consumed. Veltar provided the data, and the display filled with red dots marking dead systems. The pattern was clear. The devourers moved through space in a steady, expanding wave, consuming everything in their path. They are heading toward the inner systems, Park Soo-jin realized. If this pattern continues, they will eventually reach Earth. Yes, Veltar confirmed. In approximately 200 years, they will arrive in your home system. Kim Dae-ho stood up and walked to the star chart. So if we evacuate New Busan, we just delay the inevitable. Eventually, they will consume every human world unless someone stops them. No one can stop them. This is why we save who we can and find new worlds far from their path. But that just moves the problem to someone else. The devourers keep growing stronger while everyone runs away. Agricultural specialist Hong Sung-min spoke up. My grandfather fought in the Korean War. He always said there comes a time when running away just means dying tired. Maybe it is time to make a stand. Veltar's mental voice became urgent. You do not understand. The devourers are not like other enemies. They are a force of nature. You cannot fight a hurricane or an earthquake. Actually, you can, said engineer Nam Ji-woo. Humans build storm shelters and earthquake-resistant buildings. We find ways to survive natural disasters. And sometimes we even redirect rivers or stop floods, added Dr. Yoo Hee-jin. Humans have a long history of fighting impossible odds. The alien was becoming agitated. This is different. The devourers have destroyed species far more advanced than humanity. Civilizations with technology beyond your comprehension have fallen to them. Farmer Lim Kyung-suk, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. Did any of those advanced civilizations ever try to fight? Of course they fought. In the beginning, they always fight. But fighting only delays the inevitable. But did they fight together? Pressed Kim Dae-ho. Did multiple species ever cooperate to resist the devourers? Veltar hesitated. Most species focus on saving themselves. Cooperation is rare. Security Chief Lee Min-ho smiled grimly. Then maybe that is what we need to do. Instead of running away separately, we fight back together. The idea clearly disturbed Veltar. Even if cooperation were possible, the devourers are too powerful. Their bioships are enormous. Their ground forces number in the millions. They have consumed entire star systems. How do their ground forces compare to individual soldiers? Asked Bae Ji-hoon. They are efficient, but not particularly intelligent. They function as a collective organism focused only on consumption, so they are like a swarm, strong together but may be vulnerable if you disrupt their coordination. Theoretically, yes, but no one has ever managed to disrupt them effectively. Dr. Yoo Hee-jin was taking notes rapidly. What do you know about their biology? Do they have weaknesses? Things that can hurt them. They are vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies, but generating enough power to affect them across a planetary surface is impossible. Impossible with your technology, corrected engineer Nam Ji-woo. What about with human technology combined with yours? Veltar was quiet for several minutes. When the mental voice returned, it carried a new tone, something that might have been curiosity. You are seriously considering fighting the devourers rather than evacuating. We are seriously considering defending our home, Kim Dae-ho corrected. There is a difference. The difference being, when you evacuate, you give up your home and become refugees. When you defend, you keep your home or die trying. And you prefer possible death to certain survival. Farmer Choi Yun-seo spoke up from the back of the room. Caretaker Veltar, do your people have families? We reproduce when necessary. Offspring are raised communally. That is not what I asked. Do you have people you love? People you would die to protect, Veltar was silent. We do, continued Choi Yun-seo. My daughter is 8 years old. She has never seen Earth, but this is her home. This is where she took her first steps, spoke her first words, made her first friends. I would rather die defending her home than live knowing I abandoned it. But if you die, she dies too. Maybe. Or maybe she grows up in a world where people do not run away from bullies. The concept seemed to break something in Veltar's mental processes. The alien stood motionless for nearly 5 minutes while the humans waited. Finally, the telepathic voice returned. But it was different now. Uncertain. In 3,000 years of evacuation protocols, we have never encountered a species that preferred death to displacement. We do not understand this concept. Kim Dae-ho walked over to stand directly in front of the alien. Then maybe it is time you learned something new. You would truly choose to fight knowing you will probably die. We choose to fight knowing we might win. But the odds are irrelevant. The choice is ours to make. Veltar looked around the room at the assembled humans. And if we refuse to help you fight, if we insist on evacuation only, then you evacuate whoever wants to go, Kim Dae-ho replied. The rest of us will face the Devourers with whatever weapons we can build. That is illogical. Security Chief Lee Min-ho stood up and smiled. Welcome to humanity, Caretaker Veltar. We specialize in being illogical. The transformation of New Busan began at dawn the next morning. Administrator Kim Dae-ho stood on the command center roof, watching colonists move with purpose through the settlement. After a night of heated discussion, Caretaker Veltar had agreed to help prepare the colony's defenses, though the alien clearly believed their efforts were doomed. This is against every protocol we have developed over 3 millennia, Veltar had said through mental communication, but perhaps it is time to try something different. Engineer Nam Ji-woo was already working with Narathi technicians to adapt their shield generators. The alien technology was designed for ship defense, but Nam Ji-woo believed it could be modified to protect the colony's infrastructure. The power requirements are massive, he explained to Kim Dae-ho. We will need to route energy from every source in the settlement. The fusion reactor, the solar arrays, even the backup generators. What about the Narathi power cells? Kim Dae-ho asked. Those too. If we connect everything in series, we might be able to generate enough energy to maintain a defensive barrier around the central district. Teenage prodigy Oh Tae-young was helping with the technical calculations. At 17, he was the brightest engineering student the colony had produced. I think we can boost the output by overclocking the fusion reactor, he said. It is dangerous, but if we are going to die anyway, Nam Ji-woo smiled grimly. That is the spirit. Across the settlement, Security Chief Lee Min-ho was organizing the colony's defenses. Every adult who could hold a weapon was being trained for combat. The hunting rifles and industrial tools were being supplemented with Narathi energy weapons. Former intelligence officer Bae Ji-hoon was teaching tactical courses in the community center. The Devourers fight as a swarm, he explained to a group of farmers and teachers holding plasma rifles. They overwhelm through numbers, not intelligence. Our advantage is that we can think and plan. Farmer Lim Kyung-suk raised her hand. What if we cannot stop them? What if they break through our defenses? Then we fall back to the next defensive line, Bae Ji-hoon replied. We make them pay for every meter of ground. Even if we lose, we make it cost them so much that other worlds can learn from our example. Dr. Yu Hee-jin was studying devourer biology with obsessive intensity. The Narathi had provided detailed scans of the enemy species, and she was looking for any weakness that could be exploited. They are fascinating in a horrible way, she told her assistant, Nurse Bae Min-jung. Their nervous system is distributed throughout their body, but the coordination signals all originate from a central processing organ near what we might call the brain. Can we target that organ? Min-jung asked. Possibly, but it is heavily protected by bone and cartilage. We would need weapons that could penetrate deep into their body core. What about the electromagnetic frequencies Veltar mentioned? Dr. Yu paused in her research. That is interesting. If we could disrupt their coordination signals even temporarily, it might create opportunities for conventional weapons. She immediately sent a message to Communications Officer Park Soo-jin. Within an hour, Park Soo-jin was working with Oh Tae-young to modify the colony's communication array into a weapon system. The power requirements are enormous, Park Soo-jin warned. If we use the communication array as an electromagnetic weapon, we will lose all contact with the outside universe. We are probably going to die anyway, Oh Tae-young replied with teenage bravado. At least this way we go down fighting. The preparation continued around the clock. Agricultural specialist Hong Sung-min was working with his wife Choi Yoon-seo to create improvised weapons from farming equipment. The fertilizer storage became a bomb factory. Irrigation pumps were modified to spray flammable chemicals. Even the children were contributing. 8-year-old Choi Aira and her friends were helping to move supplies and ammunition. The older teenagers like Park Min-ji were learning to operate defensive systems and medical equipment. Retired teacher Kim Hae-sun insisted on a combat assignment despite her advanced age. I have lived 73 years, she told Lee Min-ho. I will not spend my remaining time hiding in a bunker. The colony's construction mechs were being weaponized under Nam Ji-woo's direction, Industrial cutting lasers became anti-personnel weapons. Heavy lifting arms were fitted with improvised armor plating. Even the mining explosives were repurposed as defensive charges. But the most important work was happening in the research center, where Dr. Yu He-jin was making a breakthrough. "I think I have found something," she announced during the daily leadership briefing. "The Devourer's coordination system operates on very specific frequencies. If we can generate electromagnetic interference on those exact wavelengths, we might be able to disrupt their collective behavior." Veltar's mental response was immediate. This approach has been attempted before. The power requirements are beyond most civilizations' capabilities. What about using the communication array combined with all the colony's power sources? Oh, Tae-young suggested. "It might work," Dr. Yu admitted, "but only for a short time. Maybe minutes before the system overloads." Kim Dae-ho leaned forward. "How short is short?" "Best case scenario, maybe 10 minutes of full disruption. After that, the equipment burns out and cannot be repaired." 10 minutes, mused Security Chief Lee Min-ho. "That might be enough time to target their command organisms." Bae Ji-hoon was studying the tactical displays. "If we can disrupt their coordination during the initial assault, we could inflict massive casualties while they are confused. Even if we cannot win, we might hurt them badly enough to send a message." "What kind of message?" asked Communications Officer Park Soo-jin. "That humans do not die." Quietly. The days passed quickly as the colonists prepared for war. The settlement was transformed into a fortress. Every building had firing positions. Every street had defensive barriers. The central district was protected by overlapping energy shields powered by every electrical device the colony possessed. Veltar watched these preparations with growing amazement. The alien had expected the humans to panic or despair when faced with impossible odds. Instead, they worked with fierce determination, turning every tool and resource into a weapon. "We have never seen anything like this," Veltar admitted to Kim Dae-ho during one of their evening discussions. "Most species either evacuate immediately or fall into paralysis when faced with the Devourers. What do the Narathi do when threatened? We analyze the situation, calculate survival probabilities, and choose the most logical course of action, which is usually running away. Which is usually preservation of life through strategic withdrawal," Veltar corrected. Kim Dae-ho smiled. "Different words for the same thing, perhaps. But we survive." "Yes, but do you live?" Veltar was quiet for a long time. "We exist, we continue. We help others. But do you have homes, families, dreams for the future?" "We have duty, purpose. That is enough." "Is it?" Another long silence. Then Veltar asked something unexpected. "What happens if you survive this battle?" "We rebuild. We make our colony stronger. We send warning messages to Earth and other human worlds. And, if the Devourers return in greater numbers, we fight them again. And, if you cannot win, then we make sure our children have the chance to try." Veltar processed this information slowly. "You would condemn future generations to a war they cannot win. We give future generations the choice to fight or flee. Right now they have no choice at all because nobody is fighting." The alien stood motionless for several minutes. When the mental voice returned, it carried a new quality, something that might have been understanding. "For 3,000 years we have preserved life by avoiding conflict. But perhaps we have also preserved defeat." The long-range sensors chose that moment to alert the colony. 3 massive objects had just entered the outer system and were accelerating toward Kepler 442b. The Devourers had arrived. The Devourer bioships appeared over New Busan like 3 dark moons blotting out the morning sky. Each vessel was enormous, easily 10 kilometers long and covered in what looked like living tissue. Strange appendages writhed along their hulls, and bright orange fluids pulsed through visible veins beneath the surface. Administrator Kim Dae-ho stood in the command center watching the alien ships descend. Around him, colonists manned defensive positions throughout the settlement. Everyone knew this was probably their last day alive, but nobody had fled. "Range to primary target," called out Communications Officer Park Soo-jin from her modified weapon station. 12 kilometers and closing," replied teenage engineer Oh Tae-young, his hands dancing over the electromagnetic weapon controls. Dr. Yu He-jin monitored the biological scanners. I am detecting massive life signs aboard all 3 ships. The number of individual organisms is beyond counting. Security Chief Lee Min-ho coordinated the defensive positions through his radio. All units hold fire until they begin landing operations. We need them close enough for our weapons to be effective. The first bioship touched down in the agricultural sector, crushing the outer farms beneath its massive bulk. The living hull pulsed and writhed, then began to open like a gigantic flower. What emerged made several colonists cry out in horror. The devourers looked like walking nightmares. They stood 3 meters tall on multiple legs that ended in crystalline cutting tools. Their bodies were covered in fungal growths that seemed to shift and change constantly. Most disturbing were their faces, if they could be called faces. Clusters of dark eyes surrounded feeding tentacles that dripped with digestive acid. Estimated enemy strength, Kim Dae-ho called out. Former intelligence officer Bae Ji-hoon was counting through binoculars. First wave appears to be approximately 2,000 units. More are emerging from the other ships. The devourers moved in perfect coordination, flowing across the landscape like a living tide. They began consuming everything in their path. Trees, grass, even the soil itself was stripped away and processed by their feeding mechanisms. They are heading directly for the settlement, reported Security Chief Lee Min-ho. Estimated time to contact 4 minutes. Kim Dae-ho looked around the command center. Everyone was at their stations, ready to fight and probably die. Dr. Yu, is the electromagnetic weapon ready? As ready as it will ever be, she replied. But remember, we only get 1 shot. After that, the equipment will be destroyed. Then we make it count. Oh Tae-young, Park Soo-jin, prepare to activate on my command. The devourers reached the settlement's outer defensive line. Engineer Nam Ji-woo had positioned his weaponized construction mechs at key points around the perimeter. The first aliens to encounter them were cut down by industrial lasers and crushing mechanical arms. But there were so many more behind them. All units. Open fire, Lee Min-ho commanded. The battle erupted with stunning violence. Plasma rifles fired from defensive positions around the settlement. Improvised explosives detonated among groups of devourers. The aliens fell by the dozens, but more kept coming. Farmer Lim Kyung-suk crouched behind a storage container, firing her hunting rifle at the advancing swarm. Next to her, retired teacher Kim Hae-sun operated a modified irrigation pump that sprayed flammable chemicals. When agricultural specialist Hong Sung-min ignited the chemicals with a plasma torch, dozens of devourers were engulfed in flames. But the aliens adapted quickly. Their rear ranks began avoiding the burning areas and focused their attack on other sections of the defensive line. They are breaking through Section 7, Bae Ji-hoon reported over the radio. We need reinforcements. Section 7 is overrun, came another voice. Falling back to secondary positions, the devourers poured into the settlement like a toxic flood. Their coordination was perfect, their numbers overwhelming. The human defenders fought with desperate courage, but they were being pushed back toward the central district. Kim Dae-ho watched the tactical display and made the hardest decision of his life. Dr. Yu, activate the electromagnetic weapon now. But our people are still fighting in the outer areas. If we wait any longer, we will lose everyone. Do it now. Dr. Yu Hae-jin looked at Oh Tae-young, who nodded grimly. Together they activated the modified communication array. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Every piece of electronic equipment in the colony overloaded simultaneously. Lights exploded in showers of sparks. The fusion reactor screamed warnings as it was pushed beyond its design limits. And across the battlefield something incredible happened. The perfectly coordinated devourer swarm suddenly collapsed into chaos. Aliens that had been moving with hive-mind precision began stumbling into each other. Some stopped moving entirely. Others began attacking their own kind. It worked, Oh Tae-young shouted over the sound of burning electronics. The electromagnetic interference is disrupting their coordination. Security Chief Lee Min-ho immediately seized the opportunity. All units concentrate fire on the command organisms. Target the largest aliens you can see. The human defenders rallied magnificently. Farmer Choi Yoon-seo emerged from cover and began picking off confused devourers with precise rifle shots. Engineer Nam Ji-woo drove his construction mech directly into a group of aliens, crushing them beneath its armored feet. Even the children contributed to the fight. Park Min-ji and the other teenagers operated defensive systems, while 8-year-old Choi A-ra helped carry ammunition to the adult fighters. but the electromagnetic weapon was dying. Smoke poured from the communication array as its components burned out one by one. The power grid fluctuated wildly as the fusion reactor approached critical overload. How much longer? Kim Dae-ho called out. Maybe 2 minutes before total system failure. Oh, Tae-young replied. Then we use every second. The battle raged with increasing intensity. The colonists fought like people possessed, knowing they had only moments before the Devourers regained their coordination. Agricultural specialist Hong Sung-min led a charge against one of the bioships, carrying explosive charges into the alien vessel's organic hull. The explosion that followed shook the entire settlement and sent pieces of bioship raining from the sky. Caretaker Veltar, who had been observing the battle from the Nurathi ship, finally joined the fight. The aliens' advanced weapons cut through Devourer ranks with devastating efficiency. Why are you helping us? Kim Dae-ho asked over the radio. Because for the first time in 3,000 years, we see a species that refuses to surrender. Veltar replied through mental communication. Perhaps it is time the Nurathi remembered how to fight as well. The electromagnetic weapon finally died in a spectacular shower of sparks and flame. Across the battlefield, the surviving Devourers began to coordinate again. But something had changed. Their numbers were drastically reduced and many of their command organisms lay dead on the ground. More importantly, the colonists had proven something that no species in the galaxy had ever demonstrated before. The Devourers could be hurt. They could be killed. They could be stopped. The remaining aliens began a fighting withdrawal toward their damaged bioships. They had come to consume an entire world, but instead they had suffered massive casualties against a small human colony. As the alien ships limped away from Kepler 442b, the colonists of New Busan stood among the wreckage of their settlement and cheered. They had lost nearly a third of their people and their infrastructure was in ruins, but they had won. Kim Dae-ho found caretaker Veltar standing near the damaged alien ship. The Nurathi was staring at the retreating bioships with what looked like wonder. In 3,000 years of running, Veltar said, we never thought to stand and fight. We preserved our lives, but we lost our purpose. What will you do now? Kim Dae-ho asked. We will stay. We will learn from you. And we will help you prepare for when the Devourers return with greater numbers. Dr. Yu Hyejin approached them, carrying a datapad filled with biological readings. They will return, will they not? Yes, Veltar confirmed. But now we know they can be defeated. And we have something we never had before. What is that? Hope. Kim Dae-ho looked around at his people. They were battered and exhausted, but they were rebuilding already. Children helped adults clear debris. Engineers worked to restore power systems. Farmers planned new crops in soil that had been scorched by battle. The word will spread, he said quietly. Other worlds will learn what happened here. Humans do not yield easily. Communications Officer Park Soo-jin was working to restore their ability to send messages across space. When the repairs were complete, she would broadcast the story of New Busan to every human world she could reach. The relief ship that had landed 18 days ago carrying weapons, trained upon it, had brought more than supplies and alien technology. It had brought the beginning of a new alliance between two species who had learned to fight rather than flee. In the years that followed, New Busan became a symbol throughout human space. The small colony that had stood against impossible odds and won. Other worlds began preparing their own defenses. The Nurathi shared their technology freely, no longer focused on evacuation but on resistance. And when the Devourers returned in greater numbers, they found not defenseless colonies, but fortified worlds ready for war. The tide of consumption that